Good morning,
Morning.
officially. Um, We'll see if a couple others hop on, but we'll go ahead and get started. Shannon's going to go into the regular agenda, but I did want to have a discussion about that has come up since Monday night at the council meeting. We did pass the second reading of the strategic ordinance, but it did end up with a deadline on it, or a sunset, which is the second meeting in December. There is that's problematic for a couple reasons. One, with the redevelopment process, we won't be done with that until, we won't receive that report until the end of November, beginning of December. So it will be very difficult to have a, land use regulations in place, even for pending ordinance, that quickly. So we are likely going to have to extend that deadline. The other thing, and one of the things that a couple of us have talked about since then, is that no matter what happens with, catalyst areas and overlay areas, the ordinance that we put forward does apply across the board to the city. So wanted to get your all's thoughts this morning on, even though we had said we might take a pause with land use, is having land use look at what a by right. So when we get the overlays and catalyst overlays done that apply and for specific areas, and say what can happen there or what can't happen there, and what the community would like to see there from a vision standpoint, plugging back in what would be the by right for residential on the proper scale, so on and so forth, that we allow back into the commercial areas where residential was allowed previously. And having land use look at that, so we can put that, if we could make a recommendation and put those in place and say, yeah, we've looked at these, we're comfortable, they've gone through, this is our recommendation, that it's gone through planning commission, council is okay with it. And then we can say, whatever our deadline ends up being for the bigger picture stuff with overlay districts, we can say once we are at the end of implementation, that if there's not an overlay that applies to your area, then these are the by right regulations for properly scaled residential components in C, CM, and CP2, or whatever the three are that currently allow it. Fran?
So yeah, let me just sort of support what Bob said and add why I think that's crucial. The ordinance that we approved was amended to include a date of December 23rd as a sunset. What that means is that if our work wasn't done by December 23rd, the ordinance is rescinded. And what that means is that essentially we've accomplished nothing. Now, my position, by the way, is that if we don't get our work done by December 23rd or March 23rd, the answer is not to rescind an action that helps the community. It's that we take responsibility for our failure. So I think the other thing, Bob, as part of this is maybe to establish a realistic date for when we really believe this work will be done, not that that date is a drop dead in terms of rescinding the ordinance, but that's the date that we as council can assure the public we will be done with this. And if not, we will pay the price for not doing our job, rather than the community paying the price for our failure to do our job. So I think that's why, Bob, in support of what you're saying, we probably do need that land use committee to get back to work and come up with a definite point that we're confident we will have something in place to move forward on, right? And not worry about it in terms of, I think that would mean, Bob, and I thought this morning, that maybe every month, either Bob or Shannon would have to update council on progress, so we know we're making progress, as opposed to a sudden deadline in March, and then we're told we've made no progress. But anyway, so I think the deadline would help us structure things and report on a regular basis.
Right.
So I'm supporting what Bob is requesting, basically.
It might be worthwhile looking at who else do you want to reach out to include in those discussions, seeing as though the land use group that you put together for the initial recommendations from ClemsonNext, there might be some holes. It might be heavily weighted one way or the other. It might be worth looking at if there's other people you'd like to include in that group that we could invite, or opening that back up.
Is there anybody else that we think we would need to involve in that process, particularly if we are moving toward, if one of those tasks is moving towards by right, that we think, you know, that sweet spot that we could live with, you know, throughout the city, in areas that don't have an overlay that apply to it.
It's not something we have to decide today, just something to think about.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on that idea? And I'd like to do this as kind of like if we can, you know, as a workshop almost, where, you know, if we could schedule a meeting where we could get together with the land use committee for a couple or a few hours and come up with kind of an initial proposal in one shot for that, as well as, you know, timeline wise for the other stuff in the overlays. You know, some of that's going to be contingent on the consultant that we're going to hire, and we're doing the last interviews today. So we should be making a decision about moving forward with a contract and hopefully getting that approved at our August 16th meeting. So I think we would need to, on that other stuff and other timeline, we need to wait a little bit on that. Other thoughts? Get a land use committee, maybe spread our tentacles there a little bit, or at least give an opportunity to spread our tentacles a little bit with who's in that. And again, do it as do the initial push as a workshop format, and, you know, kind of get together what that package of regulations might be. And we've talked about some of those over time, you know, what some of those might look like moving forward. So anyone opposed to that idea? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, so I'll work with Shannon to you know, look at when and where we might schedule that. If you have ideas about other people to include in that process, let us know. All right, well, thank you. And so with that, we'll move into the regular agenda, and I'll turn it over to Shannon. You're muted.
Here's our agenda for the day, everyone. To give you an update on the other work groups, council on Monday accepted or supported the recommendations from the remaining 3 work groups. So now all of our work group recommendations have been kind of agreed to or accepted by City Council. So we're starting to move into the project phase for all of those. The traffic group is meeting tomorrow to start work on outlining a couple of their projects and how they might move forward, kind of what the tasks are within those projects. One of those is identifying how to move forward with pedestrian and bikeway projects, how to chunk those up, identify funding, get those shovel ready. The other one is trying to figure out with the signage project, how to start moving forward on implementing some different wayfinding signage within the city. And then I have an update for you on the traffic study. So the kind of revised traffic study area went out to all the participants, local municipalities with the price tag attached. I talked to Andy on Monday. He had heard back from the university and the university is in to help with that. He has not heard back from any, at the last time I spoke with him, he had not heard back from anyone else. So that's where the traffic study stands, is waiting to hear on what other municipalities and groups are willing to jump in and help fund that. Any questions on that traffic study? Okay. The university group met on Monday as well. They are going to meet again in October. They are moving forward on some of theirs. It's a little bit more advisory. They had some good ideas on some things to look into. I'll have a better update on that next week after I figure out how to fit those recommendations into some sort of project or task list. But we had some good discussions there as well. Let's see, everybody else, the housing group is moving forward. Their two projects are community member led right now. So we're working on when we can hold those meetings. Those projects would be the Pocket Neighborhood idea and then the Council of Neighborhoods idea. The Economic and Business Development Group is going to meet with the city's Economic Advisory Board in August. So that'll be the fourth Thursday of August. And they're going to meet together and see if they can together take on this idea of the Business Innovation District. The Business Incubator idea is, I've been talking with Catherine Watt about moving that under her Entrepreneurship Center initiative. It seems like a good fit.
We do need to watch there and see, you know, what the university is doing with what they announced at the July board, or the, you know, end of June board meeting, I guess with July board meeting, with what they announced that they were going to be doing in that area.
Right. At our meeting on Monday, Johnson Link shared, well, he didn't really have an update on what the full plan was, just that was the space they were planning to use for that.
Okay.
So we're kind of in a holding pattern with that. And since it fit in well with the entrepreneurship initiative as well, we can kind of hold on that and see where it works to move that into.
Can I ask a question about that? So what is the university planning to do in that area?
They announced that they are going to be leasing space in the youth center and building, and they're going to move a entrepreneurship startup business, you know, support center there. And I'm not sure, they already have something downtown in the think tank on Sloan Street. And I think that's going to be part of it. And they're going to move everything in one place and then have some, you know, I think it's going to include things like, you know, space for startups as well, you know, whether it be desk space or small office kind of stuff. But that's all just like initial, you know, stuff that we've heard, but it's not, I don't think there's a crazy solid plan yet.
We have the, that's part of the JCUAB that met, and that topic, that was about a week ago. That topic did come up there.
Yeah.
So this is fairly recent news.
Yeah, very recent, very recent.
And
You broke up for me. I didn't hear about halfway.
sorry. So you mentioned where they were going to do this, and you broke up.
I think that's what they said. I think that's what came out of the trustees meeting, and Tom may know, just out of having been connected to that that it was going to be in youth center.
Gotcha.
I don't know that. I
Okay.
don't know that. I just know that that group never wanted to really rent that space. So this is good.
Yeah. Um, I'll try to look it up here in a minute. But yeah, so that's the little bit that we know about that right now.
Okay, thanks.
That's probably about 8,000 square feet, the two spaces. So it's a significant amount of space.
Ken, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, question regarding the housing group. I know the pocket neighborhood idea is being explored. What's the location of that? The proposed location of that?
There is not a proposed location. That's part of what we're looking at. Is our first step is really to identify the land that the city owns.
So
There's some
where,
different parcels.
all right. So there are different parcels that the city now owns that's under consideration for perhaps
Mhm.
locating a pocket neighborhood.
Yeah, they're really just in research mode. So gathering information right now on what are the potential places for those, what are the potential users or end users, clients for those, and then how, like, what does the process look like to actually make that happen? So it's really just research right now, gathering information,
Okay.
is where they're at.
All right. Thanks.
Mhm. Do y'all have any other questions on any of those work groups? And then what I'm working on is trying to take all of our recommendations. Todd's done a great job with giving me an idea of where they line up with the comp plan and where the comp plan might contradict our recommendations in some areas. And I'm trying to put that into an easily readable format for y'all, and then show you how the projects that we're working on align and really address multiple recommendations from different groups, so that we can have an easy kind of visual to look at to see what we're working on and how it moves forward, all of our different recommendations from different groups. And then from there, I'll be working on a kind of like a report card or progress report card that shows us kind of what are the steps for each of these and where are we, and are we continuing to move forward. So our last item to discuss this morning is moving to kind of a new accountability committee structure. So we're missing, Doug's on here from the economic group, but we are missing some representation from the university group, although Jackie's here and Larry's here and they are on that group. So you got just having a conversation about, do you feel comfortable keeping this group as is moving forward into September for an accountability committee? We are going to go back to planning commission and ask them to appoint 2 members to be on the accountability committee now that we're changing over. So that membership might change from the planning commission. And I just wanted to check in with you guys and see if you had any other thoughts about that moving forward.
Just a question, are all the areas represented?
Right now they are, yes. Yeah. Fran?
So Shannon, review for me again exactly what the accountability committee's duties are. That might help think about other people. What exactly is our endpoint, our involvement along the way?
So it'll be a monthly meeting to check in and make sure progress is happening on all of these projects. And if progress is not happening, somebody from the accountability committee is going to have to reach out to those project groups and get them to kind of start moving, or ask what the holdup is, or where do they need help. So the idea is, do you think it would be more beneficial to have representation from those project groups all together, or people that are not on those project groups checking in?
So
Is it
right
possible to have
now,
on the call?
We could have them on the call in the morning. So yes,
I was just thinking it's more accountable if they're here, if they have to, instead of just going through you. You know, because I know how it is with these kind of committees, and you know, everybody's a volunteer, so it's almost like, you know, I don't know. I just think maybe not too many people on the call, but I just maybe they could there'd be more accountability, I guess. I don't know.
okay.
Shannon, is there any committee not represented on this group now? What committee would not be?
We do have representation on from all of the committees right now.
Okay.
Shannon, I like the idea of having some who are not on these committees as well, so it provides some fresh eyes looking at it too.
Okay. I had thought there were some community members that were involved on the work groups. Some of them had indicated when they signed up interest in multiple work groups. And those might be folks to see if they'd like to get back involved at this point in time. If you guys were looking for more community member focused accountability.
So
One thought to take the individual project items to the accountable level, updates on the various projects throughout the time continuum. So, you know, next time we might get an update on the wayfinding
Mhm.
project. The next time it might be one in the economic and business and economic development group, and just invite those team members to attend.
Okay.
So Shannon, I don't even know if this is a formal group, but we honestly would not be here if it wasn't for the gentle push for I think they're called Build a Better Clemson group, the people that really initiated the moratorium. And if they are still a group, I think there's some value of having a representative of that group here. Just because they started this with some of their own purposes in mind. Now we've grown considerably from that, but I think they were a key player in initiating this. And as I said, I don't know if that's a formal group that would have a representative. I don't know if they're a structure anymore once they've finished the petition, but maybe identifying someone who really was a leader of that group, whether they still are or not a group, would help get a voice that I think is crucial. They had a very different perspective than, for instance, some council members that was contrary in view somewhat. And I think it's good to have contrarians at the table.
Okay.
I think that group is still, I guess, somewhat active. I know they still have their Facebook page, and Tanya Hyatt kind of oversees some of that. John Fulmer was one, Elaine Masseri. I'm just trying to think of some of those who've been. I think it would be a good idea to bring one of them in.
Okay.
Shannon, could you clarify, so with the new accountability committee structure, does that replace the implementation committee?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the implementation committee would become the new accountability committee with the addition of new members or different members.
Right. All right, well, I will work on that, and I will reach out to some of the folks you suggested and have some discussions and see what we can do.
And Shannon, this is Todd. Am I correct that I heard you that you will be coming to the Planning Commission and asking them to decide which two members the Planning Commission to appoint to this?
Right, so right now we have 4 members of the Planning Commission. We'd like to just have 2 moving forward. And so we're going to ask Planning Commission to reappoint 2 members to this as we move forward.
Great, thanks.
Mhm. So there will still be ample opportunity for planning commission members involved now to be involved in the project groups. It would just be this accountability committee where there's only 2 planning commission members meeting. All right, we're at about 8:30 and that's all I had for today. Do y'all have anything else?
Jackie posted a question in the chat room
Okay.
about whether or not the other groups are still meeting once this new group is formed. The other committees.
The other committees. So the university group is going to continue to meet in their same form. The traffic group is going to morph into these kind of discrete projects. It may be just one group that's working on that, but that's mostly city staff with some other folks from the university. The housing group is breaking up into their project groups. They will continue to meet as individual project groups. The next land use group meeting is probably going to be this workshop that Bob and I will work on putting together to look at what would by right residential look like in our different commercial districts. And then that leaves us in the business and economic group. They are going to continue to meet, but with the Economic Advisory Council so that they can coordinate on their projects and what they're working on.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question, Jackie?
Yes, so the information that we're getting for from this new committee that meets once a month will be from the committee, the different committees that are in place right now, correct?
It'll be from the going forward, starting in September, it will be from these individual groups working on the projects. So for
Okay.
example, our housing committee came up with 3 projects and not everybody on that committee wanted to work on all 3 projects. Some felt very strongly about one. There's a couple involved in 2 projects. So we're breaking that up. So not everybody on that committee has to work on all 3 projects. So you'll be hearing from those project groups. And this is why I'm working on getting you all an infographic so you can see how this all lines up with the recommendations. And it'll be easier to understand, I think, once you can see it. So I'm working on that now, now that council has passed everything on Monday.
So they will make recommendations to council, and all this new committee will do is make sure that they are doing what was approved by the council, correct?
Right. So you're going to make sure that those groups are moving forward, making progress. They are tasked with getting, whether it's ordinance or recommended projects, to the point where they can be handed off to planning commission and go through the regular, if it's like a zoning ordinance or, an update on something, their task is to get it to the point where they can hand it to planning commission and then it goes through the city process. Or something like the Pocket Neighborhood project is a totally different kind of animal than anybody's ever tackled. So we'll just have to see on how that, you're kind of just checking in to make sure they're making progress and moving forward on that. Same thing. So each group, it's going to look a little bit different from each group. But the goal is basically they get it to a certain point with the help of city staff. And then it starts going through the regular formal city process with public hearings and planning commission, and then to city council to make decisions on whether to implement or wording, things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm asking all these questions because there was a meeting about 2 weeks ago where a gentleman was complaining about all the meetings and all the committees and everybody's meeting and nothing's getting done. And so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't adding yet another layer to this convoluted process. I wouldn't say convoluted, really.
I don't think we are. We're kind of in this phase where a lot of the groups are kind of reforming and kind of creating task lists and then assigning those tasks, figuring out who owns those tasks. And then there's going to be work being done and they're going to have to kind of report on this somehow. And so we're just trying to figure that out. But we're getting I think we're getting past the meeting phase because all the recommendations have now been approved. And so now people can actually start work on projects that will move those ideas and goals forward.
Shannon, are you recruiting
I like
any
that
new,
idea.
excuse me, are you recruiting any new community members for any of these committees?
I think we are at the point where we can take new community members for some of these, and for some of them, we will be reaching out to people that have specific expertise in the areas that we're moving forward on.
Okay, I just think it's a good opportunity to bring in some more community involvement.
Mhm.
Sorry, that comment I just put in the chat is for David. Okay. All right, the other role of the accountability committee, and I would look at the accountability committee as partially as streamlining this committee, and I do want the accountability committee not only to be looking at what the groups are doing, but also holding planning commission and council's feet to the fire as well, to make sure that we keep moving and we don't get distracted by other things, and this remains out front as a priority. So that's the purpose of that committee. Anything else, Shannon?
That's all I had for today.
All right. And we have some of the land use group on here.
Mhm.
So let's transition to that, and we can talk, if we can start talking about the item that we began the implementation committee with the idea of some by right stuff.
Okay,
Okay.
hang on one second. Let me pause.
So implementation